Alrighty, we're rolling on black bean soup. And in this particular lesson, you're going to learn how to make a soup that is not only an American favorite and a classic, a soup that has a lot of expectations from the people in the United States, at least, that eat it. And I'm going to give you a formula and a process for making this soup that's going to guarantee that they're going to like it. One of the things I find when I've had black bean soups out there in the world is that they tend to be too thick and a little bit bland sometimes. There's some good ones. But I'm going to show you how to arrive at just the perfect texture for the black bean soup. And we're going to do that by making the soup mixture. And after it's cooked, we're going to puree part of it and put it back inside of it to give it a little bit of body. Now, you don't have to do that, and that's one of the options that you would have when you make this kind of bean soup. The navy bean chowder is the same way. You have the same option. Lentil, same way, same option. You can puree a little bit of the bean, put it back inside the soup to give it a little body if you don't want it to be completely brothy, okay? The other thing about this particular formula for black beans, which is really a formula for black beans, not just black bean soup, is that this makes a great black bean dip. Just add a little bit less stock to the cooking process for the soup. Take it off and puree it. And you chill it out and then reheat it if you want. Put a little scallions or sour cream on top. And it's a great dip for Mexican chips, etc. And the other thing is that just don't puree the beans at all. And don't add that much stock to them. And finish them with a little bit of butter maybe and some salt and pepper and whatever else you might want to put them, and use them as black beans, as a bean, as a starch or a vegetable, if you will, okay? So this recipe is really 3 recipes in one. Black bean dip, black beans, and black bean soup. So this is a good recipe to know. And I would certainly say that just about all the bean soups you can think of like that if you know how to make them properly. And I'm going to give you the perfect formula, which you'll notice if you look at the bean soups in this course, there's some common denominators among them. Mirepoix, garlic, good stock, in some cases tomato concasse, and a cooking process, okay? And a little bit of finishing. But anyway, we're ready to jump into it right now. So we're going to turn on our soup pot, and we're going to put some bacon and bacon fat that we have pre-rendered into the soup pot. And remember, you can't have too much bacon unless you really go nuts in this soup, all right? And we're going to put the mirepoix, celery, carrot, onion in there. And we're going to put a little bit of the dried leaf thyme. And you could use fresh thyme, of course, if you wanted. And we're going to put a little bit of pepper. And a little bit of salt. Remember, these beans are going to absorb a lot of salt. And as long as you're not putting any kind of a salty garnish, like a certain type of cheese or something like that, on the soup, you can put a fair amount of salt on from the onset into the soup without having to worry about it being too salty at the end, because these beans will absorb a lot of salt. So we're going to let that cook and give you a little time-elapsed moment on the black bean soup. We're going to let this cook for about 5 minutes or so, and I'll be right back now in 5 minutes to show you how to continue this process for the great black bean soup, which is what you're going to find this to be. All right, we're rolling back to the black bean soup. Now, I've allowed 5 minutes to elapse, and that's all the time that it has taken for the mirepoix to get about half to 3/4 of the way cooked in the bacon and the bacon fat, okay, with a little bit of thyme and a little pinch of salt and pepper. Now we're going to add the garlic. In accordance to the prescription, of course, that's in the ingredient list, give or take a teaspoon, you know. You'll notice that the bean soups have a tendency to be able to absorb a lot of salt and garlic without it being salty or garlicky. We'll give that a quick stir. And now the beans we also soaked in cold water overnight. And the one thing about black beans, which separates them from lentils or navy bean chowder, or rather navy beans, is well, all beans have a little bit of distinctive characteristics that require how much they're soaked or not soaked per bean. But the black beans, you don't have to soak. It takes a little longer to cook. Whereas with the navy beans, for example, you have to soak them or it'll take you 5 hours to make the soup or something like that. And that's, you don't want that. Why bother babysitting a pot on a stove for 5 hours when you can do it in an hour and a half? So the black beans I did soak in cold water overnight, so this is not going to take too long. And we're going to add the black beans. to the pot. I think I got enough there. And we're going to give that a mix. And we're going to cover them with the white stock. Chicken stock is what we're using today. I'm going to give them a nice topping of stock because they're going to absorb a fair amount of the stock. But unlike other beans, black beans will not absorb that much if they've been soaked overnight. If they haven't, they're going to obviously absorb more, as any bean would. But black beans particularly don't absorb that much. It's not like a navy bean or lentil, which just sucks it up, you know? So we're going to time elapse this for whatever length of time it takes, and I'll keep track of it. And when I come back, after having let this cook for half an hour, 45 minutes, when these beans are tender enough to eat, I'm going to come back, which is going to be immediately in your case, and we'll show you how to finish it, how to garnish it, and you'll like it. It's a great soup. And we'll be back now, probably in about half an hour, 45 minutes. All right. Okay, the completion process on the black bean. The black bean soup, which, as you see here, looks slightly differently. It's cooked for about 35 minutes. That's all it took for the black beans to become tender enough to eat. And I wanted to point out to you that, as I mentioned to you earlier in this particular lesson, that this recipe and this formula is great for black bean dip or straight black beans or black bean soup. So if you were going to serve black beans, there you go. You got black beans ready to go. After you season them, of course. You might want to mix a little butter into them, okay? But here's what we're going to do. We're going to take part of, let me have another one of these, please, Louis, from over there. We're going to take part of the black bean soup and puree it and then add it into this black bean soup and then finish it like that, because we want to put a little bit of body in the soup. Now, if I took the soup just as it is, which I can after finishing it, of course. Thank you, sir. Let's just give it a taste first before we start even proceed in any direction yet. This soup is good. It's hot, too. The soup is very good like it is. I don't even think this soup needs an inch of salt. Now, if you wanted to, and you didn't want to have any type of pureed bean in the soup whatsoever, and I'm only recommending a small amount, Tim, you could serve the soup just like it is as a black bean chowder. Okay? And you could throw a little scallion on there, and you could put a little sour cream on there, too, if you wanted. Okay? And you'd be good to go for black bean chowder. But black bean soup, as we know it in this country, the United States, has a little bit of body to it. But that's one version of what you can do with this formula. And I would certainly not undervalue that at all, because that's good just the way it is. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take some of this mixture, just add a little bit of water to this, and we're going to puree it with a blender stick and then pour it back inside this to help make this soup have the body that we tend to expect when someone tells us they're going to give us black bean soup. Okay? So let's zap this first. Okay. Now, as you can see, we got a little bit of a pureed version in there now. Now let's mix that up. I think this needs a little bit more pureed, okay? Good. Now I'll pour that in there. And that should give us that body that we're looking for from black bean soup.
Can you tilt that up, please, Chef?
Uh-huh. That's pretty close. This is good. You can make it a little thicker if you want. You can puree more, puree less. You know, the important thing is that you have some body if you want to serve it as a black bean soup. Let's get this. It's already seasoned. I mean, it turned out just perfect the way we had it seasoned to begin with, so we don't really have to add anything to it. Now, we could mix some whole butter into this if we wanted to, but I don't think this needs it. See, this way you still got a few black beans floating around inside your soup. You see? We'll put a little bit of sour cream on that, which is traditional. And scallions or diced or minced purple onion would be also the other traditional way in which this soup is served. But I think in a nutshell, this formula that I just showed you, which is mirepoix, celery, carrots, and onions with garlic, cooked with bacon and bacon fat and a little bit of butter, and then having stock added to it, cooked and then pureed a little bit or not, is all you need. This soup is absolutely delicious the way it is. This is nice. You're going to love this. You enjoy this soup recipe, and you try it, and you'll like it.